Welcome to Throwing Shade and Clay.
We're your hosts, Karen and Louise, slinging history, politics, and paint in equal measure.
Each episode, we take one fascinating moment from history
and see how it still shapes the world we're living in today.
While we're at it, we'll be painting pottery inspired by the theme, because nothing says political discourse like a perfectly glazed mug.
So grab your brushes, your hot takes, and your sense of humor, and let's throw some shade and some clay.
This episode may include adult language and disturbing themes like war, political liaisons, and the cluster we call the American government. Please exercise caution when listening with children under 13.
Hi, Karen.
Hi, Louise.
Welcome back. We're at our favorite table. We've got some clay, and we're ready to hang out, right? Yeah. What are we talking about this week? I didn't study my notes at all.
We're talking about Anne Boleyn and the lies we tell about her.
That's right. Oh, I'm so excited. I'm kind of obsessed with her. I don't know if you are, but I love all things her, and I consume all media with her. I don't care if it's good, bad, or...
I would say coming into this, I didn't have a great understanding. Like obviously you recognize the names and everything as you're going through it, and everybody and their brother at least knows like a song or something about Henry VIII. So I was like, I wasn't interested, but I didn't really know anything, right? So getting into this, I just became more and more fascinated. Oh my gosh, keeping my notes about interesting facts down to like just a few pages instead of like a freaking dissertation was extremely difficult.
I really feel like people in medieval times and like up until, I don't know, the 1700s just did more shit than we do. Like you've said in other episodes, like, oh, they didn't have TV. So like, but like literally more complex humans than I can even imagine.
How much brain power do we have available that we just don't?
Oh, we've just let fetter, it just sinks into the inside.
We're going to talk about the lies we tell about her state-mandated murder, how she was vilified in the press. Modern opinion turned on her as a venomous snake who slithered her way into Henry's life to upend the status quo.
Every S had to be hit.
Right.
Hopefully these mics are not super hot.
And in reality, Henry did not do anything he didn't want to do, including divorcing his first wife, Catherine of Aragon. He took dozens of paramours. He restructured the church to get England free from Rome's rule and his succession plans.
Yeah, Henry was absolutely a sociopath. And we're going to talk a lot about that today.
Absolutely.
And it's just... So people he killed.
Yep. So before we get into that, why don't you tell us a little bit about our project?
I'd love to. We're making necklace pendants out of clay. I had initially envisioned maybe having slip casting as part of this as well, but then I thought I might overwhelm you with trying to talk and use a piping bag at the same time. Not that like that's a you specific, like I thought we would be overwhelmed.
Yeah, that honestly, I mean, yes, a couple people have told us that things are good and funny, but like, let's not make it too complicated.
Yeah. This is just simple. So we're going to make four each pendants, and then we're going to see how they turn out, and then we're going to auction them off just like we've done before. But you and I kind of need to get together and like decide, are we auctioning for the same cause every time, or should we pick a new cause?
Well, I think so, since we don't actually have them live yet, but we will soon, promise guys. I'm working on that. Let's stay with what's it called? Fueled for school. Fueled for school. That's actually a lot harder to say than you think.
Yeah.
Or at least at this point in the day.
It's the double ooh.
Yeah. Fueled for fuel. So I say for our first, because we'll have we've got our 4 projects that we've done, and then these. So why don't we stick with that and try to get them a decent amount of money, and then we can pick something else for our next.
I like that idea. Yeah. And I've got I'm just finishing up the little social media video for the bowl that I created. It is so much prettier than I could have ever hoped for. So hopefully you guys want to buy it for $1 million, because it's really
super awesome.
Yeah.
I have not painted my bowl yet.
There's time.
My full-time job gets in the way of a lot of things I want to do. So, but that's okay.
This week
also helps me pay for things that I like to do. So, you know, give and take, right?
Yeah. This week has been rough for me too. I've had a lot of field trips, so it's been a lot of hanging out with kids and just, I love it. That's my favorite. I really do. I love hanging out with kids because they take everything you say as Bible, whereas adults like do whatever they want. And then they're like, why didn't this work? And I'm like, oh, because you didn't listen to a thing I said.
Yes.
So I like working with kids. That's my favorite.
One of my nieces, if you guys haven't noticed yet, I'm pretty sarcastic. She takes everything super literally. So it's really difficult because like my family and we try to mess with her, but you like kind of fib to her about something and she's like, oh my gosh, really? And then you feel bad because she's just so innocent and sweet. So I know I'm the worst.
You kind of.
It's fine.
So with the pendants, I thought it'd be nice, and I think I got ahead of myself, but I thought it'd be nice if we kind of talked about the symbolism that Anne had adopted. Renaissance era people, Tudor era people were very superstitious, and with that, symbolism really meant a lot to them. So they would have family crests, and then they'd have crests for each human in the family, and then when they got married, they would mesh their crests together. So it's poignant to say that hers was a falcon. It's one of the most iconic symbols linked to her, and it represents fierce determination and independence. And then, of course, her initials and coat of arms were symbols that could be found all around the castle, but there are still some that Henry tried to erase that he missed. So there you can see Anne in Hampton Court Palace. You can also see the armillary sphere. It's a symbol, it symbolizes constancy and is linked to her motto, Semper Idem, which means always the same, which is funny because what was last week was sans changer, never changing.
Sans changer.
Sans changer. But all of these symbols came together to kind of tell a story beyond the story of who Anne was as a human. And a lot of times she gets boiled down to just a romantic rival and just a sex pot Marilyn Monroe type figure, when really she was this very intricate human with lots of emotions and lots of things to give to everyone around her.
And extremely intelligent.
Incredibly, yeah, very well educated for her time, and
stuck in the whole manipulative, my family gets to make all my decisions because I'm a woman and I have no rights or say in my own life.
And even beyond that, she's stuck in playing the game of a courtier where your life is dictated by the king's whims and by what he really wants for his own court.
I think one of the things that kind of struck me the most as I was doing some research was just almost like the whole Aladdin thing. Like, the very beginning when he meets Princess Jasmine and they're both like, they want what the other one has. Mm-hmm. And so, you think about, oh my gosh, it must have sucked to be like just a peasant or whatever during this time. But then you read about the lives of some of these, royals and everything. And honestly, like, okay, yeah, they weren't starving. They got to wear pretty dresses and everything, but it's just a different kind of prison.
Yeah, definitely a gilded cage.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's something that the grass is always greener, right?
Yeah, so, and it's a wild time in history too to talk about Henry's court versus previous courts. His father's court and his court were very similar in the fact that they had just taken power from Richard and that things were in upheaval and that there were people who really had a better right to the throne than either one of them. So to think about what made Henry a sociopath, and it was really nurture, not nature. Mm-hmm. It was his father's fear of losing the crown and his growing fear of not having a legitimate heir and kind of losing everything that his family had built in the last 3 generations. It was a wild time to be alive. So today we're going to talk about Anne Boleyn. Enough about Henry. Who cares? Yeah. We're going to talk about the 3 main lies that we tell ourselves about her. That Anne despised Catherine and wanted her ousted. And the second one is that Anne was a big fat hoe. Right. That she was just a French-trained whore who came to court to steal Henry away from his beloved sacred wife. And that she was a witch, which just really adds to the idea that she was this big villain. That
I'm not a witch, I'm your wife.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's my favorite. So let's dig right in. So we can talk about Catherine first. Catherine was married to Arthur first before Henry. Henry had an older brother. And I just learned today, these aren't in my notes because I'm speed listening to 500 Years of Lies, which is one of the references in this episode. And I didn't realize Henry was kind of excluded from all of the princely training that Arthur got because Arthur was supposed to be destined for the crown and
Right.
Henry wasn't. Henry was not trained in princely duties. He didn't really know what he was doing when he was given the crown. And his father really had never planned for him to take over. He was making other succession plans before he died. So it's fascinating to think that, like, yes, he was a sociopath and a terrible person and he killed half of his wives, but it, looking at
in a way, he's set up to fail.
Yes, absolutely. Set up to fail, set up to be a sociopath,
Right.
set up to think that his will is God's will. So Catherine comes over from Spain. She gets married to Arthur. She's super excited. And they never consummate the marriage because he's like sick and shit. So they don't boink. She's married to Henry. I don't think I realized this, for 24 years. 24 years. That's an entire lifetime. That's twice as long as I've been married to my husband. That's insane. And then he decides, no, thank you. He wants an heir that is legitimate. So he starts looking at ways to find a legitimate heir. And he looks to his son, Fitzroy, and starts playing with the idea that he's going to bring him into court and give him some sort of lordship title that makes him good enough to be prince. Of course, that's not going to fly for most of the older European courts. They're not going to recognize a bastard son of a king. And he learns that pretty quickly, but he's doing that simultaneous to trying to attract Anne.
So if he's the bastard son, then who is his mom?
Oh God, you're asking me a question that I forgot to research.
No.
So he had quite a few
illegitimate
children.
legitimate children. I guess I just didn't realize that it was like from the beginning.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, he took lovers the entire time that he was married to Catherine, and he had the 2 Fitzroy children. Then he has 2 children by Mary Boleyn before Anne Boleyn.
Right. Oh, I'm gonna get into some of that.
So there's quite a few of them out there hanging around. So not only are there people that are better suited for the crown other than Henry, like James of Scotland, but there are his own children that could form a faction against him as he ages. So fascinating. But Anne Boleyn is blamed for slithering into Henry's bed and convincing him to depose the rightful Queen of England. Now, everyone in England loved Catherine. I really loved her. She was very beloved, and she did a lot for the poor. And she came to England with the mindset, and she was a trained princess. She was really, her parents were absolute, just paragons in dynasty, and they had really trained her well. So for her to get thrown into this and stuck with this interesting, really just kind of a cow, like a brand new calf, is just awful for her. But he gets sick of her, so there's that. And he does offer for her to go become a nun, which like, you could just give up on our relationship and go become a nun.
So magnanimous of you.
And really, we can shit on that, but people in medieval times were deeply religious, and it does give her an out. Like if she were unhappy in her marriage and no longer wanted to be queen, I don't know why you wouldn't want to be queen, but if she no longer wanted to be queen, it's an honorable way
deal with this fat son of a bitch.
Exactly. It's an honorable way for her and him to both get out of the relationship, because she takes on another sacrament and blah, 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 blah. But in reality, it was Thomas Cranmer and Thomas Cromwell that moved the plans for absolving their marriage forward. They argued that Henry should not be subject to the Pope's authority and supported his decision to annul his marriage to Catherine of Aragon. So at the time, England is Catholic, as is the rest of the European world, really, which means that they're under Roman rule. So the Pope is the supreme ruler of the world, but the princes get to rule their own land, sort of. But the more that Cromwell and Cranmer dig into the logistics of law, they realize that, for instance, if someone is excommunicated from the church at this point in time, the king can't do anything about that. He can no longer have bearings with that person. He can't reverse the decision. He can't send them somewhere else. They no longer work for him. And that's the Pope's decision from Rome. So this is really England's kind of first foray into being an independent country.
Separation of church and state.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, separation of the Catholic Church and the state.
Yeah.
So, and that's why it's fascinating too, because Henry can't imagine a world where the church is not the center of the universe. So when he creates his own church, he then becomes the head and he's the center of the world, not the Pope, which he sees as better.
Of course, because he's a selfish prick.
Right. So the break from the church is much bigger culturally than just the divorce. In Henry's case, he felt he should be head of his church and state, and he saw them as one and the same. The people behind the Reformation wanted freedom from tithing to an outside monarch, freedom to translate sacred texts into modern languages, and wanted humans all to be recognized as worthy of a redemption that can only be reached through beliefs, not good deeds. I think this one struck me most in my reading because we can't fathom a world where people are this religious and where an entire state is one religion.
Mhm.
At this point in time, sacred texts were only in Latin, and priests could only be the ones who read Latin. And so the only person who can tell you whether you're sinning is also the only person who can absolve you from your sins,
Right.
is also the only person who can say, what is a sin?
Mhm.
So you get
It's
into
just
this,
another method of control.
it is. And then when you look at the big, huge business that is indulgences, people could buy their way into heaven by giving money to the church through indulgences and through sacred pilgrimages. One bishop who said that his forgiveness was better than God's if you paid the indulgences that he was asking
How
for.
Christian of you.
It's so wild. And the people at the time had no idea that that wasn't truly in God's text. So they just took that as Bible because what else was there?
Right.
And not only could they not read, because that, you know, we can talk about literacy rates at this point in time, but they couldn't read Latin, even if they could read. The Catholic Church now does not allow the purchases of indulgences. They've gotten rid of that. So they kind of started to fix the things that went wrong. But they were practices that were really brought about by these reform pushes that Anne and her faction had made. And so that's fascinating. That's something, that's a gift that she gave the church. In 1567, Pope Pius V canceled all grants of indulgences involving any fees or financial transactions. And today, indulgences are granted through specific acts of faith, such as prayer, rather than a monetary exchange. So you can still perform an indulgence, but it's not via money, it's prayer and service. The Catholic Church of the 1500s was just a fucking menace. Anyone seen as going against the beliefs of the Catholic Church could be outcasted, burned at the stake, or worse. Yes, worse than being burned alive, as we've seen from the Spanish Inquisition. Put on the rack, drawn and quartered, dipped in hot oil. What else? Put in a bed of nails. Left to starve with a bamboo shoot growing in your bum. Lots of fun ways.
And then stuff of nightmares.
After all of that, the Catholic Church would then confiscate all of your property. So your widow, your family would be left with just your debts. And that's something that we see George Boleyn argue for on the executioner's block. He says, please just allow my family to consolidate my estate and pay off my debts.
George is Anne's brother.
Yes.
The family tree here, guys, gets super weird. So there's probably going to be a couple times where I interject to either clarify or just make sure I'm on the right page.
Yep. So what is a heretic is decided by the priests of the time, and then what is worthy of punishment or praise is decided by the parish of the time, and then none of the lay people really understand it, and then the king can't argue for any of his people in any way.
So, but I'm really sure he would, at least in this case.
I mean, I think that he would have. I mean, if you think, maybe not Henry, because he is a sociopath and lacks human emotion, but there are kings who would say, you know, that's my advisor and you're sentencing him to death or torture or whatever. Why does Rome get a say over my people, the people that I'm in charge of? And I think we see that better with Elizabeth, but I just imagine the mental whiplash of humans at this time. Henry, they have these new ideas from Martin Luther and from, oh gosh, who was the French guy? These ideas that the church needs to be reformed, and even Claude of France and Marguerite of Navarre, they're fighting to reform the church, and the very least of their concerns are getting the Bible translated into English and French and Spanish for their people, but the bigger things are breaking away from the church so that you can rule your own people. But they propose this reform that's completely unheard of and absolutely outstanding at the time. And then Henry comes out as the defender of the faith, and he says that Martin Luther is a heretic. The Pope should be allowed to do all these things. And then just 5 years later, acquiesces and says, oh, yes, we should have reform because it suits his narrative and what he wants. And he pushes for reform. And then his daughter, Mary, turns around and burns heretics at the stake and outlaws English Bibles and does the absolute backwards dance. And then Elizabeth I declares, I Elizabeth, never had any meaning or intent that my subjects should be troubled or molested by examination or inquisition in any matter, either of their faith or, for that matters of ceremonies, as long as they shall in their outward conversations show themselves to be quiet and not manifestly repugnant to the laws of the realm. She's the first monarch to really give her people the freedom to pursue their own faith as long as they do what she asks and they perform their duties. She's like, okay. And it's tremendous. It's tremendous. And when you think about it, it's wild to me that it's Catholic and evangelical or Anglican faith. And it's not even something foreign. They just don't want to have to pay tithes and want to be able to read the Bible in their own language. They're not asking, can we be Muslim? Can we be Jewish? None of that. It's just, it's fascinating that it's just this simple request of being able to read their own faith in their own language. Now, Catherine was devoutly Catholic. She had no ideas of Reformation that we know of. She wore her hair shirt in penance. She did her tithes. She wrote to the Pope during her confinement and when Henry was, putting her on trial and things like that. So she doesn't want to break from the church, which makes her an enemy of Henry. But she's not an enemy to the people because a lot of the people don't want to break from the church and don't understand the real elevated logical discussions. So is Anne going in there and breaking up their relationship? No, she's going in there and planting the seed that Reformation is not bad and that Henry deserves to rule in his own way. It does call to mind the Thomas More quote, should tell a lion what he should do, not what he could do. Because once you give him all the power, he'll do whatever he wants. So this is where Henry runs off on his own and does everything that he wants to do, not what really is best for his people. But we can get into that later. So the second lie that we tell ourselves about Anne is that she was a big old hoe. I hate that she gets this rep. And I think that this is just the Madonna whore complex played out. You know, we want to put Catherine and Anne against each other. It has to be there. It has to be that. It's either or, right? It can't just be that Henry's a dick.
Right.
It's got to be that these women fucked up. And then it's got to be that they're a hoe. So we hear that Henry says that she had more knowledge than he expected of a virgin after living in the French court. We don't hear any of these things until she's dead. So none of these rumors about her being a big old fat hoe come out until she's dead. None of the, she was trained in the French ways. The graph, the shit that we give the French at this time period is really weird because they are just as devout and they are leading the Reformation. Marguerite of Navarre is very devout and wants the Reformation to go through so that her people can read sacred texts and enjoy the full joy of the Bible. And that is the court that Anne grows up in. She goes to France and hangs out with Claude and Marguerite for 7 years, serves them well, learns all of this from them, and really is in a very kind of cloistered thing because Claude is pregnant all the time. Claude is pregnant back to back to back to back to back. So she's in confinement with Claude and entertaining her in her rooms with just a bunch of women for all of the 7 years that she's there. So there's no time for her to have had any kind of escapades. Additionally, courtly love wasn't really like that. Yes, you'd get chased by men, but the extent of like giving them a lock of your hair or writing them a poem.
I remember covering that in one of my high school lit classes. Like if you had to read, like starting with Canterbury Tales and then like Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, chivalry has a distorted definition today than what it was then. So it was definitely, this knight is going to fight in this battle or this, joust in your honor.
Wearing your colors for your family.
But that's it. Like there's no, when you say courtly love, it's literally like
doing good acts in the name of someone.
Devotion from afar more than it is actual love or lust or anything like that.
Yeah, wild. Marguerite, as we've mentioned, is the Queen of Navarre at this time, and she was a known reformist working to change the entire French court over to her reformist views. I didn't know, and maybe you didn't either, but Martin Luther is the head of the Reformation in England and Germany, and he accidentally becomes the forefront of that argument with the 95 Theses, which he never intended to be public. I didn't know that. He didn't actually nail them to the front of that church, he was using the 95 Theses as a discussion at the college that he worked at. And he wanted people to have a theological discussion about whether or not changes should be made. So he actually didn't start as a going out to reform the church. He just said, what if we talked about these things? And then when it came out and someone had made copies of the 95 Theses and passed them out, it was his colleagues that had done that. And then he was like, well, shit, I have to shit or get off the pot. I got to own it or not. So he owns it. So we get the Lutheran movement in England and Germany and some in Spain, but then we get the Calvinist movement in France because Calvin brings about his ideas. So that's why Lutheranism is really more Catholic than you'd expect. It's Catholic light is what I've always called it. And then Calvinism is more evangelical. And then the Church of England is kind of its own flavor that takes from both of them. But it was unlikely while serving Claude and Marguerite that Anne would have had time for any hanky-panky. And she served with honors for 7 years. And there's no way that Catherine of Aragon would have allowed her to come serve her for another 5 years had she not had those good letters from Claude and Marguerite. Absolutely not. Especially because Catherine was a studied princess. She knew what the fuck she was doing. So she would not have tolerated bullshit from Anne like we see in all the media drama between the two of them. Now, Anne's rumored affairs include a lot of fucking people in addition to Mark Smeaton, Henry Norris, Francis Weston, William Brereton, and George Boleyn, her own fucking brother. It is said that George and Anne had an unusual friendship and that they were very close. And I think it is devastating that that becomes a reason for Henry to then say, well, you must be doing the deed. Just absolutely weird. But the interesting part of George's case is that in the court of public opinion, no one thought George was guilty. There were odds of 10 to 1 on the day that he was up for sentencing that he would not be sentenced. And that comes from Chapuis, who is not a fan of the Boleyns. So we can trust that one. Having tried Anne first and found her guilty of adultery and treason and incest, the court had to find him guilty. And they tried to maneuver out of it. And they tried to charge him with lesser charges. But because the king was the ultimate judge, he could make any decision he wanted. So he went ahead and said, yes, you're guilty and you get to die. So George's scaffold speech was very long and well recorded. And we can guess from that that the entire crowd was silent and was actually listening, because otherwise, how would they have recorded the whole thing? This is just one man standing on a parapet in front of thousands of people, because it was
he's just spectacle. A man standing on a scaffold asking you to not murder him.
I mean, asking you to not go forth with the state mandated murder. The scaffold speech is very long. It was not the honorable thing to deny your guilt once a guilty verdict had been given by a court of law, because the idea was that that's treason, right? The king has said you are guilty, you must be guilty, therefore you cannot say that you're not guilty. That would be gross. So instead of fighting it, he admits that he's a sinner deserving of death, which is kind of the convention of the day. He begs forgiveness for anyone he may have offended and begs for God's forgiveness. He came close to denying guilt by declaring, beware, trust not in the vanity of the world or the flatteries of the court or the favor and treacheries of fortune. So he's kind of playing the game of like, yes, I'm guilty because the king says I'm guilty, but I'm only guilty because I wanted better for my family, kind of idea. And Anne goes on to play on this as well, begging for forgiveness for her sins and for that of her daughter, and that people would protect her family after this. And he said he would be alive if he had not done so, not trusted in the treacheries of fortune. By blaming fortune for his fall, he comes as close as he dares to for denying his guilt, i.e. he was dying because of luck. The luck had been against him, not because he was guilty. And then he goes on to speak of his religious convictions before calmly submitting his neck to the axe. And then Anne was beheaded 2 days later. So she gets to watch all this from her position in the tower, which is just something. So the third lie that we tell about Anne, are you ready? You look like you're not ready.
No, I'm totally ready.
Okay.
I kind of want to say it for you though.
Go ahead.
Although I'm just saying it again to repeat.
I'm not a witch. I'm not a witch. Oh my God. I say that to my husband all the time, actually. Like if there's any chance for him to refer to me as his wife, I'm like, I'm not a witch, I'm your wife. And he's like, I was going to say wife. Give me a chance.
Yeah, he's so too nice to actually call you a witch.
Even when I deserve it. So Anne is accused of witchcraft, and again, posthumously. So this is after she dies. She becomes the ugliest, stupidest, biggest hoe that is also a witch.
Which is so interesting because if you look at it from our perspective, you're like, oh, well, Henry was trying to be like, oh, I'm the king, I know everything. But then it's like, oh, but you married this ugly, whorish woman.
And so you're like, thought about that. That's a really good question. Is
so
like,
then why
are you the bad judge of character, or is she the bad
or
person?
she was amazing when you married her and
she changed after you met
3 years. Let's just say they were only married for 3 years. So anyway,
this poor baby.
Sorry.
No, that's a very good point, and I never really have considered that. But we don't have to think about that because we are women and our brains are small. So
right?
It's not important. There are various reasons why Anne is touted as a witch, and it comes about at various times. So we have heard her called Six-Fingered Anne 100 times in pop culture and in poems and letters and things. And the rumor begins with Nicholas Sander in 1585, long after her execution in 1536. He was a Catholic exile and wanted to demonize the Boleyn family and attack the legitimacy of Elizabeth's reign. Can you imagine living in a time where superstition is everything, and where if you have a pockmark, a mole, a slight blemish, I mean, look at the depictions of, who is it, Charles, right, of Spain, and his chin. How would Anne have gone unnoticed that she had a sixth fucking finger only on one hand her entire life? That doesn't make any sense. It's not in any of her pictures. It's not mentioned in her records. It's not.
Well,
she would have
what records?
We'll
get into that.
She would have been hidden away.
Right.
You know, there was no way she would have made it into a court, especially not the court of Catherine or of Claude. There's no way. They would have seen that finger and been like, the fuck. So that is fascinating. She's also, of course, blamed for her infertility, her stillborn and miscarried babies. She's blamed for every stillborn and miscarried baby that she produced, even though it was 100% Henry's fucked up nards and DNA.
Again, she literally wrote that.
I did literally write that, and I'm very proud of it. I want to read it right off the paper.
Yes, I love it.
So we can get into the science of it all. Is the newer belief, and it is my personal belief, that Anne and maybe also Catherine of Aragon and, oh gosh, what's the other one? No, those are the only two that had more than one baby by Henry, right? I think that they were Rh negative and that Henry was Rh positive, and that their firstborns were Rh positive, which is why all of their successive children died, because there was no RhoGAM shots at the time. So that Kel's protein was in their baby's blood. They had that interaction, and then any birth that you carry after that, if you don't get a RhoGAM shot with the first birth, you're risking the second, third, fourth, fifth. It could have been that. There's also a belief that Henry's nards were bum and he could not produce a viable child or a boy, but I don't believe that, because we see the Fitzroys, we see Mary's two children, the Careys at that point.
Well, and there's so many things that in this story that I can relate back to Eddie Izzard, which is a comedian that we both love. And he's got a whole bit on Church of England. He's got a bit on, I'm a royal, you're a royal, let's marry. But the first rule of genetics is spread the genes apart. So to me, it does make sense, because he's successful having kids with his mistresses.
Yeah, with people who are non-blooded.
Not going to be people in a royal family or in the court. So that totally makes sense to me.
I mean, I want to agree with that. However, Anne really is, she's a commoner. I mean, like her father is an ambassador and her brother holds a title in state, but they are not royal. So Henry really, Henry's bloodline is not as convoluted as Catherine's. So we could say that with his union with Catherine was just too inbred to really produce heirs that would live. But I think that when we talk about inbreeding with Henry and Anne, it's not really applicable, because neither one of them are really truly threaded stock at that point. But it's something to think about. And it's something to think about in medieval times. I mean, there's not that many people are there? So we talked about that last week with 2 weeks ago, with France having, more than the rest of the world population. It's just, there's just not that many people to bone. So
Bummer.
yeah. But I had RhoGAM shots with all of my kids because a fun fact about me, I'm Rh negative, and you always assume that your partner is Rh positive when you're Rh negative, so you get the RhoGAM shot so that your babies are safe. They're like a son of a bitch.
Ugh.
They're very
Because you're not going through enough when you're pregnant.
I know, it's a very thick shot. And then your doctor, like my doctor was like, usually you put it in your butt.
Mhm.
You put it like right here on your thigh. And the second to last baby, he was like, we're going to put it in your arm. You're big enough. And I was like, bro. And he put it in my arm and I got this gigantic star-shaped bruise. So we didn't do that with the successive babies.
He was your doctor male?
Yes, but he was great. We're not gonna hate on Dr. Herbst. Leonard Herbst. He was great. He saved my life. We've talked about the lies that we've told about Anne, and we could go on and on. There are so many. But let's talk about her court-mandated murder, which no, I will not call it anything other than that.
Yeah, legit murder.
So her confessor and the man who brings her to the scaffold is Kingston, and Kingston writes, "This morning she sent for me, that I might be with her at such a time as she received the good Lord, to the intent that I should hear her speak as touching her innocency away to be clear. And in the writing that she sent for me, and at my coming, she said, Mr. Kingston, I hear I shall not die afore noon, and I'm very sorry therefore, for I thought to be dead by this time and past my pain. I told her it should be no pain, it was so little. Then she laughed heartily and said, I heard say the executioner was very good, and I have a little neck. Put her hands about it. I have seen many men and women also executed, and they have been of great sorrow, and to my knowledge, this lady has much joy in death." I can only imagine that at this point in time, she knows what's coming.
Yeah, to be just so resigned.
There's no escaping it.
No.
She knew getting into this with Henry was a risk.
But even like, if the king's got his sights on you, I mean,
what are you going to do?
What are you going to do?
What are you going to do? Right. There's no options for her in going into the relationship or getting out of it. So in her scaffold speech, I'll read what we know of most of it. There are other parts of it where she talks about her ladies and her daughter, but good Christian people, I am come hither to die, for according to the law and by the law I am judged to die, and therefore I will speak nothing against it. I am come hither to accuse no man, nor to speak anything of that, whereof I am accused and condemned to die. But I pray God save the king and send him long to reign over you. For a gentler nor a more merciful prince was there never. And to me he was ever a good and gentle and sovereign lord. And if any person will meddle of my cause, I require them to judge the best. And thus I take my leave of the world and of you all, and I heartily desire you all to pray for me. Lord, have mercy on me, and to God I commend my soul. After kneeling at the block, she repeats several times, to Jesus Christ I commend my soul. Lord Jesu, receive my soul. Let it sink in. I know, it's a hard one. It's a hard one because she's doing the same thing that she sees George do. She accepts blame. She says that she's come to die because that was her judgment. She praises the king for being a good prince. I don't know. I don't know how these people did it. It's an unbelievable bravery and an unbelievable ability to keep your wits.
Right.
Like, I just cannot imagine.
And I'll talk a little bit later about Anne wasn't super popular.
Right.
But to this point, like somebody knew the truth of what was going on. And it was probably like her last ditch effort to be like, guys, like, I've accepted this, and don't try to fight about this even after I'm gone.
Right.
So she's not disparaging the king. She's not doing anything except resigning herself to her fate, which, bummer.
Well, and I think it's such a bold move knowing that Elizabeth is her daughter, because she doesn't know what is going to happen. I mean, he could disappear her daughter and beyond not letting her be part of the succession plans.
And Elizabeth is 2
or 3. Yeah, she's a baby. So she's trying to take care of her and her father. Her father and mother are still alive at this point, and he's still part of the court. So she's just doing her best to kind of protect him, and even so far as George's wife at the time. So then Henry goes on a tour of his own palace and tries to erase Anne. It's all fuel for the propaganda machine to tell lies about her, to dismiss her, to say she was never good enough. She was always a big fat hoe. You know, who cares?
Again, all he's doing by that is just being like, I have terrible judgment.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And her moniker with Henry is erased from all the ornamentation of the court as much as he can. She's buried in an unmarked grave in the Chapel of St. Peter of Vinicula at the Tower of London. Her skeleton is supposedly identified during renovations in the chapel of 1876 during the reign of Queen Victoria and reinterred there in 1877. However, now this grave is marked on the marble floor, but historian Alison Weir believes the bones identified belonging to Anne may have in fact been those of Catherine Howard's. I didn't read too much into this as to why. It's just such a sad story that she went through all of this. Her daughter becomes queen and she's still not given a burial that's rightfully hers. And also not given a burial that's right for someone who sparked a reformation. I mean, she's really viewed as someone who fought for freedom for the people in England, and they have nowhere to mourn her after she's murdered. So her decorations are removed by carpenters and masons. They're ordered to alter all of the royal decorations and remove her initials, H and A, and replace her emblems with those of her successor, Jane Seymour, whom Henry married 11 days after she died. The portraits of Henry VIII, portraits of the time of Anne during Henry VIII are destroyed. So the only portraits we actually have of her are posthumous. So we're not really even sure if those are, it's just somebody's memory of her. Her falcon and leopard emblems were either destroyed or altered to become Jane Seymour's panther and phoenix symbols. And her letters of personal correspondence are described as voluminous because she was very well educated and made friends all across the globe, are destroyed. And then the records of her trial are destroyed to cover up the weaknesses of evidence against her, because they were just doing what the king wanted to do, not what was actually factual. So that is the sad truth about Anne. You know, it is a beautiful story when you can tell a love story, and that's what people want to reduce Anne and Henry down to.
First and foremost, we don't actually know what her date of birth is. So we've talked a little bit about how, stuff got erased about her. Historians believe that she was born at some point between 1501 and 1507. So depending on which source you're looking at, I looked at several different ones. And there's really no conclusive information. Also,
either way, I'm sorry to interrupt you. That makes her 29 to 35.
Oh, I get
she does.
Yep, I get into that. So
I know, just for
actually, that's literally the next symbol.
So that all the listeners know, I have not read Karen's fun facts because I want to be surprised just like you. So if I overlap her, it's because I'm excited and this is what I do. And then she's going to tell us all the important stuff. So let me just stop.
So yes, that's actually, so there are no official records of her exact date of birth due to gaps in parish records. So that part I can't unfortunately blame on Henry, but whatever. So this means that when she married Henry, she was somewhere between 26 and 32. And Henry was 41. So
not the worst age gap we've ever seen. I don't know, it's not hateful.
Yeah, but
like him and Catherine. What's the young Catherine that he marries 10 years later?
Oh,
he was like a teenager. Anyway,
I didn't even get down into that because ew.
Parr. Catherine Parr was the young one, right? No, Catherine Howard. No, wait, sorry.
So okay, back up. So Henry had 6 wives.
Yes.
So Catherine of Aragon.
Yes.
Anne Boleyn.
Yes.
Jane Seymour.
Yes.
Anne of Cleves.
Yes.
Catherine Howard and Catherine Parr.
Okay, Catherine Howard is the other one that he beheads, and she's a teenager when they marry.
Okay. And that's the one that could potentially be the actual bones that when they found.
Yes.
Could be her too.
Yes.
So anyway. So Louise already talked about, Anne joined the courts of both Marguerite of Austria and Queen Claude. And to expand on that, while she was studying abroad, we've already talked about she was very intelligent, she was well educated, she was fluent in several languages, she played the lute, she was a skilled dancer, she played cards, dice, and chess, and even enjoyed falconry, archery, and hunting. So not necessarily, those are definitely things you think of as men's things.
As far as very like medieval arts, like falconry, it's so beautifully picturesquely medieval.
So yeah, but
yes, very manly.
It's very multifaceted. So especially for the lies about her basically being a hoe and that, no one technically really knows what she looks like now.
Mhm.
But she had a lot of intelligence. And yeah. We talked about some of the rumored paramours that she had. A couple other people that she was linked to before her marriage to Henry. In 1522, her family arranged for her to marry James Butler, the Earl of Ormond. This was a political marriage organized by Henry himself in an attempt to solve disputes between the Boleyns and the Butlers about the earldom. The marriage fell through, and that's when Anne became a lady in waiting to Queen Catherine.
Did you find in your research why the marriage fell through?
No.
It's because she was deemed not worthy of marrying. What is he, a duke at that time? No, what is
Earl.
he? An earl.
And she ends up becoming queen.
Yes.
So once again,
The menfolk have set themselves up for stupidity.
Flop secretly betrothed after that to Henry Percy, the son of the Earl of Northumberland, one of the most powerful nobles in England. The marriage would have been hugely advantageous for Anne, but Henry was already betrothed to Mary Talbot, an heiress of much more suitable status.
Did you know that she arranged that marriage herself? She fell in love with him, and she and he worked together to arrange their own marriage.
I think I did read a little bit about that. I didn't go, like I said, it's so easy to go down a rabbit hole and getting hung up on the details and not have this podcast be 3 or 4 hours long.
I know. And it's just fascinating that she really did love him and she was denied him.
The status of the relationship has never been confirmed. She was linked to a poet, Sir Thomas Wyatt, who met her sometime in the early to mid 1520s while he was still married to Elizabeth Brooke after accusing her of adultery, although no formal charges were made. So I'm seeing a trend here. Everybody's like, oh, I don't want to be married to this one anymore. She's an adulteress. She's a witch. She's a heretic. Blah, 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 blah.
Also, the Thomas Wyatt intrigue is more interesting when you look into it because he had been married for 10 years at that point and started pursuing her. And she was like, absolutely not. No, thank you. And turned him down multiple times. And that's why he started telling lies about her. So it wasn't even a double side. It wasn't mutual.
Right.
You know, she was spurning his advances and he was mad.
I want to talk a little bit about Anne and some of her family members. So Anne and her family were intricately linked to the royal family in several, some might even say incestuous ways. Anne served as maid of honor at the wedding of Henry's younger sister, Mary. There's a lot of Annes and Marys and Catherines.
Lots.
It's really hard to keep track, you guys.
Lots.
So if you get confused, don't feel bad.
So were we.
Yeah, definitely. Her father and brother were well known in the Tudor court, and the Boleyns held a considerable amount of wealth and power. Anne's sister Mary was one of the king's mistresses. It says she was rumored to have given birth to an illegitimate son, but I think you said earlier that she had like 2 kids with him, maybe?
Yeah, and she was married to William Carey at that time. So they've always kind of hid behind Carey and said that they were his children. And it's just a belief that they were really Henry's just after looking at timelines and things like that.
Elizabeth Boleyn, Anne and Mary's mother, was rumored to have had an affair with Henry years earlier. Henry denied this, which doesn't necessarily mean anything.
He would have been really young, too.
He denied it, stating, never with the mother, when questioned about it. So, yes. Anne was the first cousin of Henry V's 5th wife, Catherine Howard. So Catherine, yes, was the young one. She was likely born sometime between 1521 and 1525. They married in 1540. So she was like 15, maybe 19 on a good day. Ugh, gross.
And he was 1940, so he was 55. Old, freaking old.
Yeah.
Freaking old.
Nasty. So Catherine Howard was the daughter of Lord Edmund Howard and the granddaughter of Thomas Howard, the 2nd Duke of Norfolk. Thomas's sister was Elizabeth Howard Boleyn, Anne's mother. They're first cousins.
Yeah. Yeah.
Super weird. So at this point, Henry's banged 2 sisters, potentially the mom, but he won't cop to that one.
First and second cousins.
First and second cousins. Yeah. Catherine was also later beheaded after being found guilty of adultery and treason. So once again, he's a big fat liar, and he just wanted to marry someone else. Okay, so Louise mentioned Anne had multiple miscarriages in her short 3-year marriage to Henry. They had one surviving daughter that we've talked about, Elizabeth a little bit. Elizabeth
Who
the
is
First.
Elizabeth? Yeah.
Yes. Elizabeth was born in September of 1533. Anne and Henry were officially married in January 1533. So draw your own conclusions.
Well, and he also put in his documents about the annulment that, like, he post-dated his annulment, basically, so he could get away with having relations with Anne before he was actually annulled.
Well, and I read a little bit about them being secretly married a little later in the year before, and then officially married. So whatever.
It's just, religion is just a way for men to bone the way that they want to.
Exactly.
So that's a shame.
It is. I don't want to get too deep into Elizabeth I. So after Anne's execution, Elizabeth was declared illegitimate, losing her royal title and raised in seclusion. She was later reinstated for her half-brother Edward's christening. Edward was the son of Jane Seymour. And she got a rigorous education. Like her mother, she was fluent in several languages. In 1553, Edward died at the age of 15 of a quote-unquote unknown illness. Many believe this was tuberculosis. Earlier that same year, he had measles, so it could have just been one sickness after another. It could have been he was just a weakling. It could have been all kinds of things. So before his death, Edward changed the succession from his half-sisters to his cousin, Lady Jane Grey.
The 9 days queen. I'm sorry.
Oh my founder.
I'm so sorry.
Okay. Lady Jane Grey did get crowned, but was overthrown and executed by Mary the First supporters after only 9 days on the throne. It's fine. Moving on. Elizabeth remained under suspicion during the reign of her half-sister, Mary the First, who was the daughter of Catherine of Aragon, and briefly imprisoned Elizabeth in the Tower of London. After Mary the First's death, Elizabeth ascended to the throne in 1558. She reigned until her own death in 1609. She was succeeded by James VI, son of her cousin Mary, Queen of Scots. Now, this led to another rabbit hole. Mary, Queen of Scots, became queen as an infant when her father, King James V, died just 6 days after her birth. Mary abdicated her throne in 1567, fled to England a year later, hoping for refuge from her cousin Elizabeth. Instead, she was implicated in plots against Elizabeth, held prisoner for 19 years, executed for treason in 1587. It was later documented that Elizabeth regretted Mary's execution, partly due to the fact that, Mary was her cousin and a fellow queen, and partly from the political backlash. Elizabeth did not have any children, so Anne's lineage died with her. Eventually you get into, did Elizabeth name James her successor because she felt bad? Was he the only option?
I think it was a consolidation of power at that point, because Scotland and England are separate countries at this point. They're not a united kingdom. And to quell James's desire for the throne so that he'd stop fighting, because Mary fought pretty hardly to be the Queen of England and Scotland, giving him the throne kind of merges the two, but it also then, he really is the best option among equals. I mean, there's other claims through the Howard and Seymour lines to the throne of England, where if James is king, he's better than both of them, but if he's not, it leaves it open for them to keep fighting. So in order to keep a civil war from breaking out after she dies, she picks James because it's the best of all the crappy options.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, guys, go down that rabbit hole when you have 18 hours to spend on the internet. It's just crazy. Digress.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to Anne. Sorry, guys. I definitely had to rein that in. So a typical death sentence for a woman charged with treason was being burned at the stake. Anne's multiple charges, as well as the belief that she had been practicing witchcraft, were viable reasons for her to have suffered such a fate. It's not known why Henry chose to behead Anne. However, many people believe it's because he wanted to protect his public image, and a merciful death for the woman who supposedly cuckolded him would do just that. So gracious. I'm not going to burn her at the stake, even though she treated me so terribly. She was the first queen to be publicly executed. Henry dictated to the jailers at the Tower of London how he wanted the execution to go, even though, was he there? No.
Well, okay, so can I do a fun fact about why he wasn't there, or did you already?
No.
Is that later in the text? Okay, so he wasn't there because he never attended executions or funerals, because even your thoughts were policed as treason. So if he was at a funeral, people would associate death with him and then would think about his death, which counts as treason. So for him to go, like, he couldn't go to his father's funeral. He didn't go to Jane Seymour's funeral.
So is this like common for the time?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So it is bizarre to us in modern theory, but at the time, kings and princes and queens did not go to funerals because people would then imagine their death, and that counted as treason. So they didn't want to put their people in a way to perjure themselves, kind of. Yeah.
Right. Before Anne had even gone to trial, Henry sent for an expert executioner from France. The swordsman was an unusual choice, as beheadings in England were typically performed with axes. Beheadings by axe were notoriously ineffectual and could often require more than one strike to complete the undertaking.
Dude.
Anne's executioner mercifully removed her head with a single swing.
She did have a very small neck. That's the whole point.
Right. That's the whole point. That's why we're doing necklaces for our tiny neck. Contemporaries were divided on whether Anne could be considered beautiful, but she was certainly striking and elegant. Described as tall, dark, and sophisticated, with the charm of a young woman raised in the French court. She was accomplished, witty, and strong-willed, and the court was taken with her. I mentioned earlier, she may have had a good deal of personal charm, but she was not liked by the wider population because Queen Catherine had won the hearts of the people, and Anne was very much seen as a usurper. She had several run-ins with mobs of angry women, and her coronation was not met with the jubilation and celebration normally expected. And then, of course, her inability to produce the longed-for son and heir further hurt her reputation, as well as Henry's increasingly tyrannical behavior following the break with Rome. So these things were not her fault, but again, just in the theme of the podcast, she's just a scapegoat, basically. And eventually everything that attracted Henry to Anne, her strong will, her sex appeal, supposedly, and potential fertility, became her downfall. Since she didn't give him a son, and her fiery temper and strong will were much more desirable qualities in a mistress instead of a recipe for domestic bliss. So Anne was reportedly jealous. There is a little anecdote that she reportedly ripped a locket Henry had given to Jane Seymour from Jane's neck hard enough to draw blood. So
I don't know. After everything, I don't believe it.
Yeah, I mean, like,
much bullshit.
Yeah. And to this day, Anne is said to haunt the Tower of London, Hever Castle, Bickling Hall, Marwell Hall, and Sally Church.
Shit, a busy fucking ghost,
right.
Dude.
Her ghost is one of the most widely reported in the UK. Encounters have ranged from sights of the Queen strolling the grounds at the Tower of London to her coach, driven by a headless horseman, pulling up outside Bickling Hall with the Queen seated comfortably in the back, holding her head elegantly on her lap.
I don't know. I think there's enough queens of England that have been wronged that it's probably all of them haunting England.
Sure.
They're probably doing double time. But I mean, it could all be Anne. That's true too.
Maybe she's just super pissed that nobody actually knows what she looks like. So she's like, God damn it, I'm here.
I'm right here.
Here. There are tons of pop culture references about Anne. I have not watched this. I have heard wonderful things about the show The Tudors. This ran from 2007 to 2010. Natalie Dormer of Game of Thrones fame captures Anne as ambitious, charismatic, embodying the modern perception of her as a complex and powerful figure, a mix of a cunning schemer and a tragic figure.
She's absolutely gorgeous in all of it too. Mm-hmm. She's just stunning.
She's so pretty. The Six Wives of Henry VIII was a 1970 or series. I don't know. I think
it was a series.
I didn't get that either.
Yeah.
Portrayed Anne as the tragic heroine archetype of the 17th century. Wolf Hall in 2015 depicted Anne as a key player in the political maneuvering of the Tudor court. And also the other Boleyn girl, Natalie Portman, was cast as Anne. Scarlett Johansson is Mary Boleyn. And the story is them competing for the love of King Henry, who's played by Eric Bana. So clearly that whole story is total fiction because Eric Bana is a very handsome man. And nothing
was known to be very handsome.
Whatever.
I know. It's upsetting.
Garbage human.
He is a garbage human, but he was known to have very fine calves and to be very tall of stature and broad of shoulder and attractive for the day.
Oh, well, That's how I know my king's handsome. He has very fine calves. I love a king with fine calves.
I'm not gonna lie, I definitely love a good leg. But
I mean, sure,
is it the
but
thing that attracts me?
is that the thing that I want to be? I'm an infamous king in all of history, and I'm known for my calves.
Maybe not.
Whatever. I mean, I guess being known for your calves is better than murdering all your wives.
Oh,
Whatever. Okay, so music, lots of rock and pop. Anne Boleyn is mentioned in songs by artists such as Cat Stevens, Blues Traveler, and Alt J. I don't know who Alt J
I
is.
did not know Blues Traveler. That's fun. We're gonna figure that out.
Yeah, we're gonna look them up.
I mean, wait. Let me confirm. I do know of Blues Traveler. I listen to Blues Traveler all the time.
Right,
I did not know that they mentioned Anne Boleyn.
Yeah. I mean, if you know of Blues Traveler, everybody knows like their 2 songs are on the radio. So it's one of their more, I'm sure, not as popular songs.
Sure.
So
yeah.
There are folk and rock singers, artists like Carleen, who is a Scottish Celtic folk singer, and Nine Eyes, a Norwegian rock band.
Yes.
That have released songs or albums dedicated to her. In theater, she is depicted on stage in productions such as the 1949 Broadway play Anne of the Thousand Days, and more recently the musical Six, which is a modern retelling of the Wives of Henry VIII, presented in the form of a singing competition and pop concert. I saw Six when it toured in Indy earlier this year. My sister and my niece went to Europe a few years ago and got to see it in London, and they were obsessed with it. So I was like, I don't really need to know that much about it. It's got good
bones. Got good, sure.
Yeah. So it is very interesting, but it is short. It's one of the only plays I've ever been to with no intermission.
Surprised about that too when I went to listen to the soundtrack.
Yeah. It's short, but it's fun. If you are epileptic or at all sensitive to flashing lights or anything, don't
do that one.
Don't go see it. And then in literature, obviously, lots of historical and fantasy novels. Her story is told from various perspectives, sometimes as a villain, sometimes as a victim. Bring Up the Bodies is Hilary Mantel's 2012 novel. It's the second in a trilogy about the life and career of Thomas Cromwell. That novel features Anne as a central character. And even supernatural stories. Anne was reimagined as a werewolf, a vampire, or a ghost in different supernatural fiction stories, such as 2011's Henry VIII Wolfman by A.E. Morat. Almost done. Anne appears in the Harry Potter movie franchise as a portrait at Hogwarts. Her 16th century fashion, including the French hood and elaborate jewelry, has influenced modern fashion. And Anne Boleyn's story has been popularized among a new generation on TikTok, of all things, with many viewers expressing solidarity with her against Henry.
And I think this brings us back to our project. So we chose necklaces, not only because of the statement that she said, I have a very fine neck and it should be easy to cut through, but also because of the bee that she wears in her posthumous picture by Holbein. So we can show off our necklaces now, I think.
I've managed to get one done, which is super simple, and I've redone this one 3 times now.
I have all 4 of mine done and a 5th one just to show off. So we've got an H and a heart in a double heart there. That was their moniker, was ha. So people would say when they went down the street.
Or
ha, ha, ha. Go ahead. You want to show your star?
I managed to get a star. That's all I've gotten.
Anyways, this is just a funny one. It says forever love because he definitely didn't love anyone forever. He was a piece of crap.
Himself, maybe.
Himself. Yeah, this is true. And then this little guy is a rose. Obviously for English roses, that's a thing, right? And then this is one of these wood blocks here, and they have these carved out stampy things. I don't know. These have been in my box for forever, and I never had a reason to use them. But I thought I'd do this one in like a jade kind of color, and it would feel medieval-ish. What do you think?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And then this guy, I was just bored, so I kept creating. So this guy's got some snowflakes on him.
He was bored. I guess I'm not interesting enough.
No, I'm. My hands were bored. I needed something to occupy my hands.
All right. So let's relate this to modern society.
Yeah. So we've attacked Anne throughout all of history simply because she was the woman and because Henry couldn't possibly have been wrong, as you've pointed out, in his choices. So he wasn't wrong. She fucked up. He didn't make the wrong choice in marrying her. She turned out to be a witch. So how could he have known that? So that's an interesting nugget. We're not religious experts, but her efforts did push the Church of England into existence. There's no denying that.
Right.
She absolutely brought the English translations of the Bible to England for Henry to look at. She protected other people who would have been seen as heretics. She proposed the idea that they shouldn't be under papal rule and that Henry should rule his own people. And he came of age in the French court alongside Marguerite and Claude. And that was a court full of reformist ideology. And like we've said before, men create and organize religion so that they can have sex the way that they want. That's just the end goal. And I'm sorry.
Power like that.
I know that's going to offend a lot of people, but I truly believe that in order to form a more enlightened society, we should just let go of organized religion and just all be humanists and just realize the beauty and joy in all of us as humans. And the life that we give each other is the best part of what we've got in creation, not some mystical sky daddy telling us what we can and can't do, and some old man telling us that he knows what God is telling him.
I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of interested in the sky daddy.
Sky daddy, yeah, I know, right? If you look at the Pope through a modern lens and you look at other like ways that we critique other cults, right? Mm-hmm. We critique Jim Jones and we critique, I can't even think of their names, the guy who ran Nexium, just every cult.
Oh, fascinating documentary series, by the way.
Yeah, and we look at those men
fascinating in a horrible way.
Absolutely power hungry. Mm-hmm. They want all the money from their believers, from their followers. They want all of the glory. They want to dictate their lives down to the minute. I mean, what is the difference between the Pope and the Catholic Church at this point and all these other cults? I don't know. Like, I'm not saying anybody else should give up their religion. I'm saying that was part of my personal reformation, was looking at religion and realizing that cults and organized, respected religions really aren't that very different.
Right. And that's something for me too. I was raised Catholic, and that's something I've had conversations with people, even when I was younger. I'm learning about history and stuff, and you get into late elementary school, middle school age, and you're like, okay, well, this is what I grew up with, but does it mean it's the right thing? Mm-hmm. And I remember even asking one of my older sisters, like, okay, so we're Catholic, we go to
believe the teachings of Catholic.
We go to church on specific days. It's very ritualistic. You stand up at a certain time, you sit down at a certain time. Everybody knows the cues and everything. And it just, you're literally drinking the wine. Okay. Yep. So yeah, I was astounded when I was in elementary school and went to a Methodist church the first time. And they had communion, but they had grape juice. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, we have actual wine. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter how old you are, you drink the wine. Mm-hmm. And it's nasty.
And from the same cup.
Yeah.
If you're Lutheran, from the same
cup. Oh, no. Catholics, at least my church did
it too. That's true too, yeah.
But anyway, it's just absolutely semantics.
It is hard. It's very hard to see the difference between a cult and an organized religion that we respect and that is a world player. Mm-hmm. It's very difficult. And when you look at how the Catholic Church arranges itself, and the Vatican City is its own city-state, and the Pope ruled the world at this point in time. Mm-hmm. And it's fascinating and scary to think that if we freed ourselves from religion, what we could be as humans, what we could see. And I come from that. We'll get to this at some point on the podcast, but I grew up Catholic, but Catholic light. Like, my parents didn't actually go to church, and they weren't really devout, but they have their belief system. And my grandmother had her belief system, and I knew that I was Catholic. And then because I was kind of left to my own devices, I then decided I was Wiccan for a little while in high school, like we all do.
You watch The Craft and you're
oh yeah, absolutely. You watch The Craft, and then on is the thing. That's what we're doing. Okay. So I was Wiccan for 10 minutes, and then met a boyfriend in high school, became part of a Baptist church, fell into progressively controlling cults that were evangelical, broke out of those cults, met my now husband. We joined the Catholic Church, but his stance has always been, yeah, Jesus was a nice guy, but I don't really care. Like, he's been very, yes, Jesus is great, we should do what he says because he said to love everybody. but he didn't really know anything about his own faith. So we actually went to confirmation together, and we went to RCIA for adults together, and got married and did all the sacrament, and devoted our children to the Blessed Virgin, and our eldest is baptized, and then afterwards we were like, wait, you don't care and I don't care. And we're good humans whether we care or not. So maybe we don't have to care. So that's where we are as humans. But it definitely, when I was going through it, I was like, okay, I was in a cult. That was a cult. That was a thing. That was bad. And then when I zoom out, I'm like, okay, they're all a cult. It's all flawed humans controlling other flawed humans who just want to have a good life. So it's hard to see any other picture.
I was attracted to Buddhism at one point. I still think that there's a lot of very valid tenets to that. I feel like that's one of the kind of, I don't want to say easiest, but the least
offensive.
Offensive, life intrusive.
Yes,
it's essentially don't try to covet a bunch of stuff. Find inner peace and be nice to people. And I think that if you really need to follow a religion that is organized, then that's probably a pretty decent one. But otherwise, I'm totally the same way. I definitely prefer it when people describe themselves as spiritual versus religious. But you know what? At the end of the day, if you're not hurting anybody, if you are truly being
do what you want to do.
Christian in the purest form, purest definition of the word.
Yes, the important part is that we were given one commandment, and that was to love each other.
Right.
That's when Christ came, he wrote the new book, and he said, love each other, assholes. No exceptions.
Okay. So why did we choose this topic?
Why did we choose this topic? I have had an obsession with Anne Boleyn since I was a kid. I just find her so fascinating. And when I was younger, I believed the lies that we were sold. And I was like, oh, this traitorous bitch, right? I was like, Queen Catherine, Team Catherine all the way. And watching the Tudors, it's hard not to be Team Catherine and to think oh my gosh, but also they paint Henry as such a fucking tool. When you dig into your own femininity and you think, how have I been treated by people as a woman in life? And you realize that you go through the same shit. The script has not changed in 500 years. We don't have success. We sleep our way to the top. We don't have brains. We are just quoting men. We don't have power. We're the weaker sex. All of the same shit over and over again. And you look at yourself in the mirror and you say, I'm great, and gosh darn it, people like me. And you realize, I'm a powerful human that does good things and that loves people. Then Anne must have been too, and Catherine must have been too. And was Henry a piece of shit? Yes. And was there some good outcomes to things that he did? Maybe, but there's good in every cult, or else people wouldn't join. So,
well, and I think it's just another example of religion, monarchy, whatever. The people as a mass group need to be told what to do.
Yeah. And when you put a monarch in charge that is full power, that has power over the church and the state, that dictates your daily life. I mean, church at this point in time in the 1500s was literally daily life. The bells were going off every half an hour for you to pray. There was belief that every wrong thing came from Satan and every good thing came from God, and there was no rest. When that is so intrusive, I mean, it's the cult leader's tactic of keep everyone tired and hungry so that they keep working for you, so that they keep trying to win your good favor. And whether your good favor is, God's wrath, or your good favor is you as a king, or your good favor is your husband, in this case is Anne's husband, it's all the same story at the end of the day. So what can we do to change it? Stop letting men be in charge.
Right. I mean, we're trying. Some of us are trying, but I mean, at the end of the day, keep talking about it. Because as soon as we stay silent, we let history repeat itself.
Yeah, we can't allow absolute power We can't give up all of our power to one person or one entity and say, you know, we don't want to make our own decisions, or we're okay with this passive participation in our Constitution, in our government. No kings, baby.
No kings.
No kings. All right. What's up next week, Karen?
Mafia trash.
Mafia trash. And I've already had someone go, oh, let me tell you my mafia story. Let me clarify. We're going to talk about literally how trash is handled in the United States and why the mafia has a monopoly on trash. So I love all of the emails and phone calls and people stopping me in the street to say that they want to talk to me about their mafia stories and like the trash that is their mafia family. That's another episode. This one is about literally the trash that we put in the trash can and how the mafia has its hands on all of our information. I'm so excited. And for those of you who know us personally, you know I've got a lot to say about trash companies. So it's going to be a real fun.
We won't call anyone out by name yet, but depending on what happens between the taping of this episode.
I swear to God, if we come in to record it that day and that trash can is ready, I swear to God, y'all going to hear it.
He's going to go roll postal, and I don't blame. So, all right. I can't wait to talk about it.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us this week. If you've loved what we've had to say here and you want to participate in the conversation, please join us on Instagram at Throwing Shade and Clay. You can email us. Where are the email? Louise at kilncreations.net or Karen at kilncreations.net. You can follow us on YouTube to see our video if you're listening to this on Spotify, or you can listen to this on Spotify if you're following us on YouTube, whatever you prefer, or on Apple Podcasts, or on all the places that you get your podcast. Yes. And then if you are interested in the project guide, you'll find that at kilncreations.net. However, this project guide is going to be real short. It's going to tell you to roll out a piece of clay and have a
I did manage to get one more done. It's just a little thing. It says AB.
I love
Anne Boleyn.
Anne Boleyn.
And I've made some beads too.
They're beautiful.
Why not?
Yeah, great.
I'm working on a third one, but I have not decided.
We should make a bee and hang the beads from the bee, like her bee and her Thomas Holbein.
Okay, well, that'll be my fourth one. I'll do that one next.
And then if you are looking for a studio near you, you can go to paintyourownpottery.com and put your zip code in the studio locator. If you're looking to come to Central Indiana, please come visit us. Yes, you can perform all of the projects that we create. You can do those at our studio. Some of them might require more than one visit, though, because for this, you have to make the pendants and then paint them. For the bowls, you have to throw the bowl, then carve it, then paint it.
Right.
That sort of thing. But we'd love to see you.
Yes,
so
please.
Let's do it.
Absolutely.
All right, Karen, have a great week.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Throwing Shade and Clay. Your hosts are Karen, manager of squirrels, and Louise, pot dealer extraordinaire. Produced by Louise. Researched by Karen and Louise. We are not professional historians, so don't cite us for your dissertation.